Okay, hey everybody, welcome back. So today we're going to be taking a look at multiplying a binomial times another binomial. So this is Unit 8, Lesson 6, and I call this FOIL for what it stands for on the screen. You can see it right now. But it's really about multiplying two binomials together. And there's a lot of different ways that you could be taught how to do this. I like to go about the FOIL method, not just because that's how I was taught, but I think the acronym helps people remember it. So the notes for today are this. So this is Unit 8, Lesson 6. We're looking at FOIL, first, outside, inside, last, which is multiplying binomials. When you're multiplying two binomials together, so a binomial is something that has two terms. So two terms would be like, say, 3x plus 4y. Or another thing with two terms would be, say, 3x minus 10. Just two terms that cannot combine together because they don't have the same variable. Or if they do have the same variable, they don't have the same exponent. So when you're multiplying a binomial by another binomial, it can be helpful to remember to do FOIL, first, outside, inside, last. So let's look at a really simple example here to get us started. So let's say one binomial is x minus 4, and let's say another one is x plus 10. So first, outside, inside, last. So what that means is I'm going to multiply the first term on the left by the first term on the right. So first times first in this case would be x times x. In this case, that would give us x squared. So there's first times first. Now the O for outside means outside times outside. So on the outside on the left-hand side is x. On the outside on the right-hand side is 10. So I'm going to do outside times outside, x times 10, which is 10x. And it's positive because they're both positive, so plus 10x. The I stands for inside. So next we're going to do inside times inside. So if x and 10 were outside, negative 4 and the other x are inside. So I'm going to multiply those two together. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. And then last is to do last times last. So I'm going to do the last one from this side times the last one from that side, which means it's going to be negative 4 times 10, which is minus 40. And see how when you do this, everything gets used twice. So the first term gets used twice when it multiplies by the first term and the second term. The second term gets used twice when it multiplies by the first term and the second term. The other thing you'll notice is that each of these terms, the x and the negative 4, are both being multiplied by each other term in the other one there. Now we're not quite done here yet because these two middle terms here can combine. It won't always happen that way, but you want to make sure that you're taking a second and looking at your terms and seeing if you have any terms that are alike. In this case, we have positive 10x and negative 4x. So positive 10 x's, so 10 apples, minus 4 apples would be positive 6 apples, or x in this case. The negative 40 drops down and doesn't combine because it doesn't have an x. And the x squared drops down and doesn't combine because while it's an x, it's not the right kind of x. So there we go. That's the main idea behind this. Let's look at an example that is just a tiny bit more complex. So let's say for our two binomials here, let's say one of them is, let's do 3y plus 8. And let's say the other one is 2y squared plus 2. Now the same process applies. We're going to do first times first. So 3y times 2y squared. When I multiply these, I want to do the numbers first. 3 times 2 is 6. And y, if it doesn't have an exponent, is y to the first. So y to the first times y to the second is y to the third. So that's first times first. Next, I'm going to do outside times outside. So 3y times 2. 3 times 2 is 6, and the y just comes along. Inside times inside, so 8 times 2 is 16. And there's nothing for the y squared to combine with, so it just comes along. And then last times last. So this is plus 8 times plus 2 is plus 16. Now one thing you'll notice here is, in this case, and I said it won't always happen that the middle two can combine. In this case, nothing combines. There's a y cubed, but there's no other y cubes. There's a plain y, there's no other plain y's. There's a y squared, there's no other y squareds. And then there's a number, and there's no other plain numbers. So this would be what your answer would be, this whole thing here. which can seem a little unsatisfying because you can get to a point where you're used to getting like x equals 5 or something. But in this case, you don't get that. You get this kind of great big long variable answer. So let's take a look at how this is going to show up in the assignment for this week. Okay, so here we are. You have two assignments. You have one to do with your notes. That's just 5 problems. And you have another one to do that is a review of what we've covered so far in this unit. So looking at this one here, I'm going to do my first outside, inside, last. So first means 2x times 2x. 2 times 2 is 4. X times x is x squared. Outside means 2x times 3. So 3 times 2 is 6, and the x just comes along. Inside means 5 times 2x. 5 times 2 is 10. The x just comes along. And then the last one is 5 times 3, which is 15. Now these two middle terms here can combine, and you're going to need to combine them in order for delta math to say that it's correct. So in this case, positive 6 apples plus 10 apples is positive 16 apples, or x's in this case. Drop down the 15. Drop down the 4x squared, and then these can't combine even though they're the same variable, they're not the same exponent. So from there, you can now go about entering your answer. So there's 2 ways that you can get the exponent. We've talked about this. You can either bring up the keyboard, in which case you can use the a squared or a to the b power, or if you don't want to use the keyboard, you can instead, it's going to bug me if that's not just right. There we go. You can instead use what's called the caret key on your keyboard. The caret key is Shift 6. So if I enter this in, I can enter it in as 4x, and then if I hold down Shift and press 6, you can see it goes into the exponent. I'm going to put a 2 there. You can see the cursor is still in the exponent though. So if I use my arrow key to go to the right, it's going to bring it down, and then plus 16x, and then plus 15. And I'm going to submit this. Be funny if I was wrong, but pretty sure I'm not. There we go. All right, so that's the extra part that we're adding to what we've covered so far. You have 5 problems to do with the notes, and then you have a review of everything we've covered so far this unit. If you don't understand anything, you have a few options. First, if we look at a new problem, you can watch the help video. The person who does this explains it slightly differently than I do, but hey, look, they did first outside, and then I'm assuming they did inside and last, so pretty similar. You can look at the example problems, or you can send me an email. We can do a Google Hangout or something like that, or a Zoom meeting, and I can walk you through it. So I haven't been getting too many requests for that, so I'm not sure if you guys are just understanding it and I'm making everything too easy, or if people maybe aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. Don't know which it is. Otherwise, yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day.